So, Alone, Season 11, Episode 9, next to last episode. Seasons are only usually 10 down. Oh, just spoiler. Okay, there's 3 people left. Timber still seems to be the person in the best situation. He killed a moose. He got a moose, and he built a cache to put it in and stuff. He had to redo some of that because some smaller things get in, and kind of put a wedge on the top, so hopefully it would be bear proof. And he's talking about needing fish. He goes out and he gets some fish because people in this whole idea of bushcraft survival in wooded areas, or whatever you want to call it, know that, yeah, you need protein, you need fat. Normally, a lot of times, we try to avoid, eating a lot of fat, but your body actually needs it. And when you're in like a survival situation with limited food, you want to eat things that have fat in them. So he's in a pretty good situation, although part of me says he could talk himself out of it. He's kind of convinced that other people are just as well off as him, that they have gotten a moose by now too, and none of the others have. The others are basically surviving off fish and another few things. One of the contestants did this again that just kind of amazed me. Was he's got a snare loop, and he puts his end on the end of a long pole. Well, he sees a bird. In this case, the bird's on the ground. And he goes over to it really slowly. And, the response of some animals of being threatened is that they freeze. And they're going to take off at the last moment if they have to. But they're hoping that if they freeze, they're blending in, because they're obviously colors that match some of the environments and the trees and everything they're in. So he just very slowly, and then he starts moving this pole towards the bird. Very, very slowly again, like kind of over to one side. And then he brings it kind of behind the bird, at which time the bird's looking more at the guy on the end of the stick. And the bird decides to get out of there. And what does he do? He flies right into the snare, tightens up on his neck. And then the guy can, pull up the bird to him and kill it and eat it. And that's just kind of amazing to me. But some of these animals probably have never seen a human being before. They're still, they don't know what the capabilities are. So they're, not as wary maybe as animals would be in other places. I'm not sure about that, but it seems to make sense. But someone gets a rabbit too. The woman goes out. She has what sounds to me like kidney stones. That's what she's experiencing, this fairly intense pain. And contestants are now more aware of the fact that they're going to have to live with whatever consequences, whatever actions they did, there'll be consequences. I know on an earlier season of Alone, one woman said, and she wasn't the winner either. I can't remember how high up she placed, but she said it took her 9 months to get over what was done to her body in this Alone situation. A lengthy time without adequate food and water and shelter. Well, probably have adequate water. I shouldn't have said that, but you know what I mean. Food, basically, and shelter, nominal shelter. So the woman this time decides that, with this pain, that's triggering the idea that she doesn't want to live with some kind of organ failure thing and stuff like that. But I was surprised. I looked it up. They mentioned that you could die of kidney stones, and I thought, geez, can you really? And yes, you can. Because you figure the kidneys are taking the toxins, and you're going to flush them out as urine. And if you get a big kidney, but there's like a small tube going out of it. And so that place, the larger kidney, and that smaller, this very small area where that liquid flows through. And if you get kidney stones created and then freed, they can go down and get in that spot and cause a great deal of pain. But also, technically, I guess they could block your urine and you could die from it because the kidney's no longer removing toxins. And generally in the situation of these people, because they have to get water, they have to boil water, go through all these things, they're probably not drinking as much water as they should. They're not staying as well hydrated as they should. And that's a danger, of course, because as we start to become less hydrated, our body doesn't work as well, but it also can affect your mind, and you can start making poor quality decisions. Same with lack of food. Not having enough food, the brain uses up quite a huge amount of the calories that we eat. And even some people say that, I read some research about this, the idea that man had fire, could cook his food, make calories and other things in the food more accessible, actually brought about modern man, because all of a sudden now modern men could have a large brain and a small system to process the food. Okay, if you look at like a gorilla, you could say, well, or a chimpanzee, but a gorilla is the best example. They're kind of huge because they're, as far as in their belly and things, because they have a lot of intestines, because they're chewing food like 8 hours a day, I read. And, that has to go through their body, and they gotta absorb all the food they possibly can. And that's what happens because they have the long intestines. So in their case, they don't have the calorie intake to fuel a larger brain. So this idea of cooking, this book I read that was really, really great, and it had like 100 pages of citations in it and stuff, but it was called Catching Fire, How Cooking Made Us Human. But it talks about this idea of the requirements of the brain, and that how by cooking things, we make things much more ready for consumption. And now some people say, well, wait a second, no, it's better to eat food that's raw. And it's like, well, some of that's true, but a lot of it isn't, because it just isn't, people that go on the raw food diets, they lose huge amounts of weight. How do they do that? Well, they're not getting enough calories. And, the cell walls of plants, we're not very good at digesting that. And if that's where the food value is, in between cells, which it is, that makes it a problem. But cooking it weakens that cell wall so that it can be digested. And it's interesting that they did some research where they cooked some food, like the cooked meat. This animal's used to raw meat. If they taste the cooked meat and then are given the choice, they always go for the food that's cooked. And that's just interesting. But there's so many more calories that are available. Like if you have something, let's make up like a carrot, and you could say, well, this carrot has, 100 calories in it. Well, but how many calories are really available to you? cooking, you'd get it closer to 100. Not cooking it, it could be quite a bit lower. What if it's like only 50? So half the calories you're eating, you know, pass through you and go out. So, anyway, it is important to have that fire. So, like I say, Timber's got that going. He thinks that other people have the moose. We have the woman go out because she's, you know, afraid. She's older too, so it's like she's afraid. Like when I say older, I mean younger, really. But she's not 20. Let's put it that way. She knows that she has to live with whatever she did when she goes out, and she actually runs kind of a survival type school or whatever, some type of thing, which a lot of these contestants do. And you know, she makes a decision to get out, and with that intense pain, which it appears to me that she's got something like kidney stones, yeah, you'd want to get out of that situation, because that eventually that would be so debilitating that you would just be basically laying down, moaning and groaning. So, you know, sat phone, tap out, and they come and get her. But so now the 3 guys are left. And again, they're talking about the weight loss too. We're talking about calorie intake and everything. Timbers, it's been like 50 days, and he's only lost 30 pounds. Now, someone will say, what do you mean? That's a lot of weight. Well, it is, but not in relation to the other contestants. For a while, they do these health checks. So they go in and weigh them and check them out and make sure they're not gotten to a serious point. There's a body mass index number, and once you hit that, they pull contestants. Which is, you know, one season, there was a man who was storing up fish and eating very, very little, and they came in and they had to pull him, and, you know, he's kind of like, well, no, I got other fish, but, you know, it was clear that, you know, not being starved, looking at his situation, that he wasn't thinking clearly anymore. He was worrying about having fish for, you know, 100 days from now, rather than sustaining himself now. So that's always a thing that contestants have to wait, is you need, you know, usually the beginning of the time or shortly after the beginning, you'll be building somewhat of a better shelter, and that's going to have a lot of calories that are used up. So some of the other contestants have lost 1.5 pounds or 1.25 pounds per day. And him having this meat and everything has really made a difference. And, you know, moose meat is lean, so it doesn't have as many calories, but protein can be converted to calories. If you've eaten an excess of protein, it can be converted to, you know, into calories. I think, was it him that got a rabbit? Someone gets a rabbit, and they're talking again about lean meat. You can get what's called protein poisoning because you only eat rabbit meat, and there's not enough fat in it. So that's kind of interesting in that appears to be a real thing, but then, you know, some of the literature I've read said that the body can convert protein over to calories, but obviously maybe can't do it as well with rabbit meat or whatever stressful situations they're in. So the series are usually only 10 episodes, and there's 3 people. It's gotten around day 50, and that's basically when people go out. And again, some of these people are planning for being there at day 100, and that proved to be a bad strategy, I think, for most of them. They're, you know, they need to have a food, and they need to be keeping up with their requirements for eating, to fuel themselves, to do whatever they do, to hunt more, and different things, and to fish, and different things like that. And so we'll just see how it goes. I'm still rooting for Timber. It's funny, I pick favorites, and the favorites change as they go out. Like, I really thought there was a woman, and she used 2 indigenous tribe names, and I can't remember what them, but Creed I can remember. And so she was there partly to get kind of in tune with how the people in her tribe, lived back, back a ways before, you could say before, colonization or whatever, then as that, or, during that period, but not too far in the future. And one of the things that she learned that was quite interesting was they were a community, okay? People didn't go out and just survive alone for extended periods of time. Now, people went on hunts, but a lot of times those were hunting parties. So even then they had people with them. But this idea, she realized that the value of community, I guess you would say, that's what she learned. And she went out. But we'll continue on. We'll see who's going to win. Any 3 of these people left, these guys could take it. So we'll see next week. Bye.